So hello friends, so in this video I am going to explain you about the synthesis of acetylcholine, storage of acetylcholine, release of acetylcholine, and also I am going to explain what are the drugs or poisons which affect the synthesis, storage and release of acetylcholine. And finally at the end I am going to help you to read the book K.D. Tripathi. So friends, watch till the end. So friends, see there, this is the axon terminal of the cholinergic neuron, this is the exoplasm and this is the axonal membrane. See that in the axonal membrane that sodium choline co-transporter is located, and see that this choline is the amino acid and this choline amino acid, so here initially stays, so here that is outside the exoplasm of the axon terminal, but through this sodium choline co-transporter that this choline is transported from outside to inside of the exoplasm. So first that is a transportation of choline is done from inside to outside to inside of the exoplasm. Now see there, so now this choline is inside the exoplasm of the axon terminal. See that, so here that this choline is acted upon by the enzyme that is choline acetyltransferase, and this choline acetyltransferase causes the acetylation of this choline into acetylcholine, and with the help of ATP and also acetyl coenzyme. So finally that is inside the exoplasm, so here that is acetylcholine is synthesized. So this is the main synthesis of acetylcholine. So see what I have done. So synthesis of acetylcholine. So step 1, that is transport of choline from inside to outside of the exoplasm through sodium choline co-transporter. Now step 2, that is choline acetyltransferase. This is an enzyme, and this choline acetyltransferase, so here converts choline into acetylcholine ACH, and with the help of ATP and an acetyl coenzyme. So this is the main so here that is description about the synthesis of acetylcholine. So friends, so once again I am going to tell you, so this is the exoplasm. So this is the exoplasm. So as you already know that in the exoplasm of this axon terminal, so here acetylcholine is synthesized, but this acetylcholine has to be, so here that is stored in the synaptic vesicle. So for that this acetylcholine has to be transported, so here from exoplasm into the synaptic vesicle, and this active transport of acetylcholine, that is from outside to inside of the synaptic vesicle, is done through a transporter that is known as vesicle associated transporter, and this vesicle associated transporter located in the, so here that is membrane or of the synaptic vesicle, and this vesicle associated transporter, so here that is transports the synthesized acetylcholine from exoplasm to the synaptic vesicle. So friends, whatever. So here storage of acetylcholine ACH. So here acetylcholine synthesized in the exoplasm of the cholinergic nerve ending, or you can simply remember that acetylcholine synthesized in the exoplasm of the axon terminal of the cholinergic nerve. Now that is acetylcholine, so here transported actively into the synaptic vesicle with the help of a transporter, and that transporter is the VAT, that is vesicle associated transporter. So this is the main description about the storage of acetylcholine. I am going to explain the, so here release of acetylcholine. So as you already know that this acetylcholine, so here stored in the synaptic vesicle. Now finally that this acetylcholine released from the synaptic vesicle and it goes into the synapse, and after coming in the synapse, so here it binds with it, so here that is nicotinic. So in this way, so here that is acetylcholine, so here that is released from the release into the synapse from the synaptic vesicle. Now once this acetylcholine released into the synapse, so here that is the synapse, then it binds with it, so here that is nicotinic and muscarinic, so here receptors to cause the actions. So this is the main description about the release. So once again, that is acetylcholine, so here that is remains stored in the synaptic vesicle, and from this synaptic vesicle that is acetylcholine is released and it comes into the synapse. See that, so here release of acetylcholine, so here acetylcholine is released into the synapse, and this acetylcholine binds with nicotinic and muscarinic receptors to cause action. So these is the main description about that is release of acetylcholine. So now I am going to mention a drug that inhibits the synthesis of acetylcholine, and that drug is the hemicholine. So friends, as you already know that this choline transportation from outside to inside of the exoplasm is done by a transporter, that is sodium choline co-transporter located in the axonal membrane, but that this drug, so here that is inhibits this transport of choline by inhibiting the sodium choline co-transporter. See that this hemicholine, so here inhibits the transport of choline from outside to inside by inhibiting sodium choline co-transporter. So this is a drug hemicholine. Now there is a drug that is known as fesamicol, and this fesamicol, so here that is inhibits the active transport of acetylcholine from exoplasm to synaptic vesicle by inhibiting that this transporter, that is vesicle associated transporter. As you already know that this vesicle associated transporter helps in the active transport of that is acetylcholine from exoplasm to a synaptic vesicle, but this vesicle associated transporter inhibits this active that this fesamicol drug inhibits this active transport of acetylcholine from exoplasm to synaptic vesicle by inhibiting this vesicle associated transporter. Now I am going to show you the drug, so here that is inhibiting the release of acetylcholine. Now as you already know that is acetylcholine stored in the synaptic vesicle and released into the synapse, that is to bind the nicotinic and muscarinic receptors. Now there are two drugs, botulinum and tetanus toxins, and these two drugs, botulinum and tetanus toxins, that they inhibit the release of this acetylcholine from synaptic vesicle into the synapse. So automatically that the binding of acetylcholine with nicotinic and muscarinic receptors is also prevented. So see what I've written. So poisons or drugs affecting transport, storage and release of acetylcholine. The first one is the hemicholine, that it blocks the transport of choline from outside to inside part of exoplasm. Next is the fesamicol, that it inhibits the active transport of acetylcholine into the synaptic vesicle. And here botulinum and tetanus toxins, that these botulinum and tetanus toxins inhibit the release of acetylcholine into the synapse. So automatically the binding of acetylcholine with nicotinic and muscarinic receptors is also prevented. So again, so this is hemicholine, and this is fesamicol, and this is botulinum and tetanus toxins. So friends, now let's read the book ADT. So see that, so that this is the part, that this part shows the, so here that is synthesis of acetylcholine, and how this acetylcholine is synthesized I am going to see that. So first that this acetate, coenzyme and ATP, that they act together to form that is acetyl coenzyme. Now that this acetyl coenzyme that is acts on choline, and then the enzyme is there, that is choline acetyltransferase. So together that is in the presence of this choline acetyltransferase, where acetyl coenzyme and choline react together to form acetylcholine and also coenzyme. So this is the synthesis of acetylcholine. But so this is the main synthesis, but now also I am going to show that how is choline transported, also that it is mentioned in your book. See that this choline is actively taken up by the axonal membrane by a sodium choline co-transporter. See, I mentioned that. So here that is the transport of. So here that is transport of choline from outside to inside of the exoplasm through a sodium choline co-transporter, and then this enzyme acts and this leads to the formation of acetylcholine, and this is the process of acetylation. So see here, so it is simply written that is choline is actively taken up by the axonal membrane by sodium choline co-transporter, and this acetylate with the help of that is ATP and coenzyme A by the enzyme that is choline acetyltransferase. So here present in the exoplasm, and together all this process, so here that is, so it leads to the formation or the synthesis of acetylcholine. Now, and also I mentioned you about the drug that is hemicholine. So here that is, it blocks the choline uptake. As you can see here, that is, as I mentioned, so here that is this hemicholine. So here that is blocks or inhibits the transport of choline from outside to inside of the exoplasm. Now here that same thing is written, that here that is hemicholine is there, and this hemicholine, so here blocks choline uptake, and so here that is depletes acetylcholine. So this is the main action of that is hemicholine. And also as I already mentioned this, so here that acetylcholine, so here that is synthesized in the choline exoplasm of cholinergic nerve ending, but it is actively transported in the synaptic vesicle for the storage of acetylcholine. So here also you can see that, so here that is the most of the acetylcholine, so here stored within the so here stored within the small clear synaptic vesicles. Now, and you also know that how this acetylcholine, so here that is transport in the synaptic vesicle. So here that is, so this part also I have mentioned that this is a transport of acetylcholine that is into the synaptic vesicle with the help of V8, it is vesicle associated transporter. So here also this is mentioned. So here that is the active transport of acetylcholine in the synaptic vesicle is effected by the vesicle associated transporter. And also that is I mentioned about a poison drug. So that I mentioned that is vesamicol, that is inhibits vesicle associated transporter, so that the active transport of acetylcholine from the exoplasm into synaptic vesicle is blocked, as this vesamicol inhibits this vesicle associated transporter. So here also that same thing is written. So here that is the active transport of acetylcholine in the synaptic vesicles is effected by vesicle associated transporter, but that this vesicle associated transporter is blocked by vesamicol. That is vesamicol. Now, so this is the again. So here that is VIP. So here that is, and these vesicles contain. But and the next part is also, so here that is a release of acetylcholine that is occurs in small quanta. Now, and also that is two toxins that is interfere with the that is cholinergic transmission by affecting release. So in the two drugs as I already mentioned, see, so here, so this is the release of acetylcholine that is from the synaptic vesicle into the synapse, and there are two drugs that is botulinum and tetanus toxins that inhibit that this release of a synaptic vesicle, that the release of acetylcholine from synaptic vesicle into synapse. So what are two drugs? So here botulinum and tetanus toxins that inhibit the release of acetylcholine from synaptic vesicle. So here also that is I have mentioned that the two, so here that is botulinum toxin, so here inhibits release, and while black widow, so tetanus toxins also that they inhibit the release. So these are all the, so here that is drugs affecting the acetylcholine.